to the poor. Bind up the broken hearted. Tell of the freedom that releases the captives. Push aside the mourner's darkness. The day of freedom is here, and beauty is rising from the ashes. For the year of the Lord's favors upon us. Rebuild the ancient ruins. Restore the places long devastated. Renew the broken cities. Delight in the Lord. Rejoice in our God. He is the giver of our salvation. Salvation. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. The day of freedom is here, and beauty is rising from the ashes. For the year of the Lord's favors upon us. Proclaim the good news to the poor. Bind up the broken hearted. Tell of the freedom that releases the captive. Push aside the mourner's darkness. The day of freedom is here, and beauty is rising from the ashes. For the year of the Lord's favors upon us. The day of freedom is here, and beauty is rising from the ashes. For the year of the Lord's favors upon us. Favors upon us. The day of freedom is here, and beauty is rising from the ashes. For the year of the Lord's favors upon us.
All right, here we go. Well, welcome to the Pro-Life Team podcast. Today, I've got Sarah here, and she's going to be interviewing John at some level. So, Sarah, go ahead and take over, and feel free to give your background and invite John to do the same. And I'm just going to watch and listen.
Jacob's like, "This is gonna be hilarious," and I'm here for it. So, my name is Sarah. I'm the executive director of Promise of Life Network in Western Pennsylvania. I'm also the founding president of the Pennsylvania Pregnancy Wellness Collaborative, which is our statewide coalition. And I was on, like, forever ago, Jacob, but I can't remember. I think we talked about our international chat line when I was
We
on your
did.
podcast.
Yeah, because you're in a rural area and you were taking phone calls from Africa because your team
Yes.
wanted more work during the day.
We were like, "Man, we're not getting enough Americans. What if we just opened up to the rest of the world?" Yeah, so we've now ministered to over 40,000 women, mostly in the developing world. All of them absolutely abortion minded, and we have about an 85% save rate. So it's like super incredible. The weirdest ministry. Absolutely love it. And so I reached out to Jacob and I was like, "Hey, you should have John Merwarth on your podcast because he's pretty cool." So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, John, and then we'll start talking about all the amazing questions I have for you.
That sounds good. So I'm John Merwarth. I'm coming to you from Thrive Point Consulting. It's a fairly new consulting firm that I started back at the end of last year. Prior to that, I have more than 7 years experience running a pregnancy center in the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania. And prior to that, I was an entrepreneur. I owned my own business and ran and operated that for 12 years. And going back one step further, I came from corporate America. So I was in the sales and service industry for most of my life and built that up and became a regional director for a fairly large firm, a worldwide firm. And then looked at my paycheck one day and I said, well, wait a minute. I'm generating all this money for this organization and my paycheck's like this. I said, I could do this myself without the headaches. So I started and did that. So for about 12 years, I was operating my own business. And then one day I happened to come home from a round of golf on a Friday and my wife was standing there and she had a bulletin insert in her hand. And she goes, hey, the pregnancy center is looking for a volunteer. And I said, oh, really? That's nice. What do they want? And she, s- she said they want somebody who can act as a handyman, serve for IT purposes, and also be a chaplain. She said, you'd be perfect for the job. So little did I know that's very common in the pregnancy world, the pregnancy center world. Let's see if we can get somebody to do 3 jobs and do it for 5 hours a week and for free. But
That's how we
anyway,
all operate. No, we're still doing that. That's not something we left behind 20 years ago.
well, no, I understand. I didn't understand at the time, but I understand now. But anyway, it wasn't long as I started to volunteer at the pregnancy center that they realized that I knew a little bit about business. And that's one of the places that the pregnancy center was really struggling in was the back end. They're good-hearted people, definitely had a heart for the ministry, very good with clients, very loving. But when it came to the business side of things, there really wasn't um, a lot of people with that kind of skill set. And so they recognized right away that I did. And they asked me to be the business manager, and that lasted for about 6 months. And then the board asked me to take over as the executive director and then eventually the CEO. But it was very timely because the organization was on the brink of failure. Uh, and really what they needed was someone who knew how to manage people, knew how to direct communications, and knew how to make financial decisions and make some tough calls, actually. Things that we were holding on to that didn't make sense business wise, but we were in debt and our income wasn't enough to meet budget. But thankfully, the board gave me entrepreneurial permission to proceed, and we made some big decisions and turned that around. So when I first took over, our budget was around $450,000. When I left last year, we were at 1.7 million. So within
So
within a few short years.
it's really the opposite of when you went from corporate America to running your own business. You said, "I would like a smaller paycheck and a lot of headaches." And you and I'm saying that as the director of pregnancies.
Yeah, right. But so there was more to it. Getting involved. it wasn't just like the business model on that side. I mean, that was exciting to take something that needed to grow and needed to be developed. But also had an abortion experience in my background as a teenager. So little did I know that gave me some insight into what people were experiencing that are going through an unplanned pregnancy, that a lot of my friends, I know they didn't understand that. So I have a lot of pro-life friends at the time who were very pro-life, but they didn't understand what was going on emotionally and mentally inside someone who's going through an unplanned pregnancy. And I was able to see like some of the comments they were making, some of the ways that they approached the issue, and say like, wait a minute, let's unpack this. Let's try to understand what's really going on. So I was able to bring that along with that business experience into the pregnancy center. So I always go back to a verse in Esther chapter 4, where, Mordecai approaches her and says, you got to do something. And, I'm paraphrasing, of course. And she goes, well, you don't understand. If I go and talk to the king, he didn't call me. I could die. And Mordecai looked at her and said, who knows that maybe you come to your position for such a time as this, right? And I think that happens to many of us more often than we realize, that God takes things that maybe has been planted in you 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and brings it back around and uses that in your life, later on. It's his timing.
So John and I met through the PPWC, which is crazy that we had significant overlap. The best part was when I showed up at his center I think it was 24, and you did a political tour with a couple different representatives and stuff. And so I went out as like the PPWC representative, right? Because he's representing his center at the time, and I'm going in and coming in as the coalition representative. And I run into like people I used to go to church with at at the thrift store. So there's like tons of overlap, but we didn't actually meet until 2023. And we both started, we were both founding members of the Pennsylvania Pregnancy Wellness Collaborative, which is the statewide coalition for Pennsylvania. So John, tell us, your hosts, some of the things that we've done as the state of Pennsylvania, and some of the things like we'd like to do in the next couple of years. And I'm going to chime in because I can't believe Jacob has given me this much power. Honestly, I'm like super excited about it.
I can tell. You're just like really comfortable right now. I could just tell.
This is great. I get to ask you questions. You're being recorded, so you have to be nice. I mean, we're hitting all my fun parts right now.
So let me just give a little bit of a backdrop. So for me, and I'll just talk about me personally, because I think we all had different reasons, Sarah, right? But for me, when the Dobbs decision came down and Roe v. Wade was overturned, I know like a lot of people celebrated when that happened. And I remember sitting in my office quietly thinking like, I don't know if this is something to be celebrating about. I mean, I understand it, but at the same time, I was thinking to myself, I don't think everybody knows what's coming our way
Yeah.
because of it. Like if you lived like in a red state, a conservative state, a pro-life state, that was good for you. But if you lived in a more liberal, democratic, pro-abortion state, I knew that pressure was going to come, because the other side wasn't just going to sit back and stand still. They were going to react to it. And that's exactly what happened for my center. Our local municipality went and adopted several ordinances that were meant to protect abortion clinics, but target pregnancy centers. And I know some people that are listening to this know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about buffer zones. I'm talking about complaint buttons on city websites, things like that. And at the time when that happened, these ordinances already got passed in several other towns across the country, and one in particular, a big city in Pennsylvania. And ours was the second city that they were coming after. And when I went and looked for advice on what to do about this, I went to the normal places that any pregnancy center director would go to. I got basically no real good advice. Basically, was sit back, wait, and see what happens. And I took it upon myself not to wait, and we rallied the troops, and we really protested, and we showed up at City Hall, and we made as much chatter about it as we could. And eventually our city council and the mayor, they backed down, and they just they tabled those things indefinitely. And it was because we stood up and had a voice, and I had a pretty loud voice. I think we probably set a record for the amount of people that were in the chambers for the city council, hundreds of people. And they were just surprised by that. And the mayor especially said that, I don't want to take this on. I actually threatened to sue the city if they passed those ordinances. And I heard an inside scoop was the mayor had a private meeting with some of the council members, and he said, I think this guy's serious. So I'm not gonna sign off on these ordinances. So they backed down. But anyway, that's when I realized that in Pennsylvania, we needed a voice. And it was shortly after that I got contacted by Sarah and a couple others, Sarah in particularly, asking me if I would be willing to join the founding group to form this coalition, and I was happy to do it. So to answer your question, Sarah, I think one of the biggest things that I realized that the PPWC has done was unify our voices. So we were able to contract with a public relations person, and they really helped us hone in and sharpen our communication skills. And that was something that we've been able to reach our policymakers in Harrisburg, our state capital, with those talking points and with that type of messaging. And we were able to have several political events at the Capitol. We've met with a lot of senators and representatives who really got to hear from pregnancy centers and with a unifying voice. So we're keeping the same messaging every person that we talk to. So it started to resonate. And I think that's probably one of the biggest impacts that we've had. And for some of the centers, we freed up hundreds of thousands of dollars to fund some of the work that some of the pregnancy centers are doing in Pennsylvania. It's because of the collaborative that we're able to do that.
Well, I think it's been really interesting, very eye-opening to me to see how even our friendlies need us to represent ourselves. Because you can have organizations that are super pro-life, they love pregnancy centers, they love what we do, but they don't do it all the time. And so they're kind of in the weeds of whatever they're doing, whether it's political activism or education or whatever. And then all of a sudden they're getting questions about what do pregnancy centers do? And so they've been like incredibly supportive of us speaking for ourselves and having an opportunity to do that. And so it's been really neat as Pennsylvania to have that. And I always tell John, sorry, go ahead.
No,
I'm the
you
host.
go.
Okay.
You go.
So I tell John all the time, he thinks it's ridiculous, but like I hear his story of this situation they had in his city. And I'm always like, I feel sad because nobody was there. Like the rest of the centers didn't show up because we didn't know what was happening because there was no connection, right? And John's like, you don't have to feel sad. We were fine. And I was like, no, I feel sad because when something like that happens, we should be there for each other. And so we had the first choice case that went to the Supreme Court from New Jersey. They had one of their hearings was in Philly at like one of the circuit courts. And so tons of Pennsylvania centers showed up. Like we put out the word to the coalition and we were like, hey, our sister across the river is dealing with this. Like let's turn out and make it and show them that we're there for them. Tons of centers turned out. And that's because the coalition gives us a chance to do that. And we didn't have that before.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was I going to say before I was interrupted by the host?
I don't know. The hostess.
Oh, well, I know there was a couple of interesting things that happened as the PPWC started to coming together. And there was this pro-life working group is what it's called, I think, that meets in Harrisburg once a year. And it's a bunch of pro-life organizations that come in. One of the things that occurred to me the first time that I went, we must have had, I would say between 10 and 15 representatives from organizations take the stage and talk about what they do. And it's all pro-life and they're very excited about it. And everybody cheers them on. And I was sitting back in my chair and I'm thinking, my goodness, we are the only ones who actually meet with men and women who are in an unplanned pregnancy. Like all these, they're talking about billboards and all these things that they do for the pro-life movement. I'm thinking there's not one person here that represents an organization who actually meets with men and women who are experiencing or having this experience, but it's us. And for years, we never spoke at these things. The one place that actually meets with men and women who are going through a pregnancy decision, facing abortion, the one organization who actually meets with them is the only one who's not talking. But that has all changed since we formed the coalition. So we make sure that we get in there. Just one quick story about Sarah that I have to mention is, there's people that are using language from like the 80s when it comes to pregnancy centers. Like they'll say crisis pregnancy centers. That was like a term that was used like in the 70s and 80s. And we were at the state capitol, and there was this guy representing a pro-life group, and he goes, "Oh, I just love crisis pregnancy centers, blah, 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 blah." And then it was Sarah's turn to talk, and she said, "First of all, can you please stop calling us crisis pregnancy centers?" I just thought it was great. So,
Yeah, I mean,
but if
well,
we
and
weren't
honestly, I think
there,
that I did want them to stop, and I was very nice about it. But like, I think as pregnancy centers, we're always afraid to like say anything or, oh, we're not doing that much, or we're just really small, or we don't have that much to offer. And the reality is we have so much to offer. So, and what we have to offer is not just important to the pro-life movement, it's important to men and women statewide, and not just from a pro-life perspective. So one of the things that we've been working on at the PPWC, and this is our focus this year, is closing gaps in maternal health care. And I'm sure that you've heard of this, Jacob. I'm sure that you've even probably talked about on your podcast before, but this idea of maternal health deserts. And I have like a bazillion children, like at least 45. I don't even know. I have 6 kids, and they range from, I have half a dozen children, but they're all boys. So it seems like a lot more than 6. And so maternal health care from when I had my first 16 years ago to when I had my 5th and 6th 3 years ago has changed drastically. Like there's fewer places for labor and delivery. There's fewer opportunities for good OB care. Appointments are shorter. It's not because the doctors are evil or the hospitals are evil or they don't want to help women. It's just, it's a shortage. There's not enough doctors. There's not enough offices. Labor and delivery is just, it's a big liability. It takes a lot of staff. And women go into labor when they go into labor. Like you can't organize it and plan it like you can with a lot of other things. And so pregnancy centers are absolutely critical to bridging that gap. And that's something that John, I mean, both of us, but John especially is like just very passionate about. And it's our focus this year at the collaborative. So tell us more about bridging the maternal health gap.
sure. Well, the first thing I'll say is it really starts by knowing your backyard. What I mean by that is like for Thrive Point Consulting, one of the things that we've done, it's one of our signature offerings, is what I call a county maternal health intelligence brief. Really what it is, it's an analysis of your community, and it breaks down all the demographics and what the needs are and what's really occurring. Because I think a lot of people across the country that are running pregnancy centers, boards, they really don't understand what is happening right in their own town. Like for instance, like in a place where Sarah lives, in the pregnancy center where she's at, Mercer County, Lawrence County, Butler. What am I missing? There's one
We
more.
also serve Crawford and Venango.
Crawford, right. When you look at that and you start to realize that, like, 30, almost 40% of the households only have one car. And when you look at that and you start to, when there's a doctor's appointment, what does that mean? And especially in the places where we just mentioned, those counties, you might have to drive 45 minutes to an hour to get to a doctor's appointment. So now you have a choice. You have one vehicle. Somebody in the house just has to work, so they need to drive to work, and then somebody else needs to get to the doctor. That creates a barrier. And I can also tell you that in those counties where Sarah is at, like almost 50% of the women who are pregnant are not seeing a maternal health care provider until they're 14 to 16 weeks. Okay. That's well into the second trimester. So you just think about it for a second, because some people will say, well, you start talking about maternal health care, that could be mission drift. No, it's not. When do women make a decision about their pregnancy? It's very early. definitely in the first trimester for the most part, right? So when they're 6, 8, 10 weeks, that's when they're making this decision. So a lot of the women aren't even seeing anybody for advice, confirmation of their pregnancy until they're in their second trimester. So if we can start bridging that gap and seeing people early on, being that confirmation expert, making sure that we're doing those early scans for viability, for placement, and for gestational age so that we can start putting a plan together for a good delivery and a good outcome. These things make perfect sense and they fit right into what pregnancy centers are already doing across the nation. But again, it goes back to understanding what those gaps are. Like for Sarah's situation, transportation is a big thing. So just by adding the ability to provide transportation to people who are early in their pregnancy makes a world of difference. And you might not even think of that as being a solution to a problem, but once you start doing these analysis and you start doing a diagnostic of what's going on in your town, it shines light on the issues, and then you can start filling those gaps that we've been
Well,
talking.
and a lot of it is stuff that we know kind of on a gut level. Like, I know that my clients maybe only have one car or one reliable car. Or I know that, like, if they could have gas money, if they could have a gas card, they could get a friend to drive them. But if they don't, they're not going to get someone. But to be able to take the data from the report and I can show it to our county commissioners, or I can show it to our state representatives, or I can show it to a donor or a granting organization, it's a real tremendous tool.
We're gonna have to get her a new internet connection, Jacob.
It's sorry, I'm out here in the boonies, it's really bad.
Um, but I know what she's.
We don't have
Yeah, I know,
transportation or
I
internet.
know, I know.
It should upload at the end. It should upload in the end. We'll probably be okay.
Yeah, but again, what she's saying is you sort of have this gut feeling, but it's then to really look at the data that supports what you're saying, and then it's even helpful to talk to like stakeholders to really get behind what you're doing, um, for them to see the data and see the results. It's like the other thing too, like we talk about OB deserts. Well, there's some places where there aren't any. So like in Lancaster County in Pennsylvania, they probably have more OBs in that county than any other county in the state, but they're all clustered. They're all clustered in one location around the main hospital hubs and then the main medical providers. So if you're rural, you're still very far away from an OB, but then it gets complicated. 48% of the women in Lancaster County, 48% of the births are Medicaid paid for. And nearly a third of the OBs don't accept Medicaid. So it's really when you start digging out and digging down and finding out what's really happening, it's very eye-opening and it helps to bridge the gaps. And it's been helping the PPWC talk to policy makers about this situation, about what's going on here in Pennsylvania. We lost our host again, our guest host.
I think Sarah's here.
No, there
I
she is.
am here. We have, so in addition to not having cars or transportation here in the sticks of Pennsylvania, we also don't have a lot of options when it comes to internet providers. And this is
No worries.
ridiculous. And it's actually not what's happening right now, but every day we know when all the kids get home from school because our bandwidth like gives up the ghost. They all come home, they all get on their on their devices,
Yeah.
and that's the end of it. So do you know, this has nothing to do with pregnancy help, but you know the little dinosaur that shows up on Google Chrome and you can like make it jump over stuff when you don't have connection? We actually had an ongoing competition on our whiteboard for who could get the highest score because everyone was so frustrated with the internet. It was the only thing that kept us.
What score did you
Yes,
get, Sarah?
What?
What was your
I was killing it. Trust me, I could jump those little trees no matter how fast he ran. It was super good. No, that's just
I
my
have no
reality
idea what
out
she's
here.
talking.
It's in Chrome.
Yeah,
when
because you
you
live in
have
the
no
land
internet.
of whatever, because you live in the land of high bandwidth, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so we talked about the coalition, we talked about maternal health. Tell us a little bit about, and this is what I'm we all serve on the board of the coalition together. There's 8 of us. And we've all realized that each of us has specific strengths or unique areas of ministry, and we lean on each other for that. Like, that's one of the cool things about the coalition. And that, obviously, the 8 of us are close because we've served together, but now that's expanding to other centers in the area. Like, we know who's good at events and who's really good at building a medical advisory board and which person is really good at mobile. And John is typically the best at business. So tell us some of the things that you see in pregnancy centers as being like big pitfalls in the business world, just over and over again, or things that people struggle with that they're having a hard time managing.
Well, I think, oh man. So a couple of things. I think culturally, I mean, there's a culture. No matter what organization you're in, no matter how good it runs or how bad it runs, there is a culture. And what I've realized is that we take that for granted in a lot of our pregnancy centers. We don't understand how important it is, and we don't understand what's available to us to affect the culture within the organization. I know, like for me, one of the things that I've seen a lot is so this pregnancy center help. It is a ministry by you for other people. You're there to minister to people who are going through an unplanned parent. It's not a ministry for you. And sometimes we get that confused. A lot of people are in the pregnancy help world because they may have had their own story in the past, and this helps them to maybe find closure. It helps them to heal, and which is fine. I mean, you should be ministered to when you're in ministry, but that's not the focus. That's not what it's about. It's about you providing ministry for other people, not being ministered. So that's part of the culture. If that's not in place, I remember a guy who ran a Christian camp who told me a story about how in the summertime, like when he first took over, he would go out. It'd be like 7 o'clock at night in August, and there were signs up. Like there were people in the pool, but there were signs up saying the pool was closed. So he went and inquired about it one time, and he goes like to the director and said, "Well, what's going on? I mean, the pool's closed. I see people in there, and what's going on?" And the response was, "Well, that's our time. That's staff time. You know, we worked all day. It's 7 o'clock at night. We go home, we get dinner. We want to go to the pool, so we close the pool to the campers." So that the staff can enjoy the pool, and that's an example of what I'm talking about. This camp is a ministry for other people. It's not for you. It's not for staff. I think that's one. The other thing that I've seen too is a lack of succession plans. You have directors that have been either in for a short time or a long time, but there's really no one else lined up to, like, if there's an illness, if there's an injury, if there's a retirement, or if somebody leaves, there's that having that person who's ready to step in and lead is often lacking. And that brings me to developing your second chairs. Those people who are leaders within your organization, but they're not the main leader. They're second tier leaders. They need you. If you're a leader, they need you. They need your development. They need your guidance. They need you to invest in them and to help sharpen their skills, so that they are more effective in their current role, but then able to maybe step up and take more. So, Leading from the Second Chair is a book that I've leaned on heavily, and it's required reading for a lot of people that I work with. You know, Financial maturity and understanding trends and things like that is something that a lot of people could benefit by some mentoring when it comes to being able to read financial reports. I had early in my career, I had a business owner tell me, he goes, "John, if you can read a profit and loss statement, and if you can learn how to manage with a by using a profit and loss statement, you can manage any business." And he really helped me to understand what it is to take deep dives into your financials and things like that, and how to notice trends. And that's something that I think a lot of people would benefit from. And then the final thing would be, risk taking. Um, a lot of pregnancy center directors don't like risk. And that there's a lot of various reasons for that. It might be the way that their board governs, and it could just be because their own lack of experience in business. But there's a lot of pregnancy center leaders and leadership governance that is really opposed to taking risks, and that's foreign to me. I mean, I thought that's what we were supposed to do to grow was take risk, but I found out that that's not something that is easily digestible in the pregnancy center world. Although it's changing, it's definitely changing. I don't know, Sarah. I mean, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah,
What do you think
so
about?
I think there's a lot of things that lead into that. One of them, and this is my situation, I've never done anything else other than run a pregnancy center. Like I've literally have one job on my resume, which is not really typical. So I don't have any business experience to lean on as to say what's normal in HR or what's normal on a finance report. Like I've only done nonprofit. And a lot of pregnancy center leaders are coming to this work from their own, like because they've been through an experience or because they felt a calling, and all of those things are so important, but it means that you don't have that what's normal to lean on. And so I know when I first started as director, I was like 25, and one of my staff members had been in corporate America for years. I mean, decades. She was like the only woman in the C-suite in her business, and she had run HR. And she would come in every morning and sit with me and tell me what to do because I didn't know what to do. Like I didn't have a clue how to run an organization. And then she would go back out of my office and to do her job like that meeting never occurred. Like nobody ever heard from her that we did this. And a lot of people don't have that. They don't have anyone to like lean on to call and say, "Is this normal? Like, is this what this is? Is this how business works? Is this how workplaces work?" And I think it's a huge detriment to pregnancy health because you've got people who are trying very hard to do the right thing, and they want to help people and they want to help women, but they don't necessarily have the tools.
Yeah, I agree.
That was it. You just agree with me?
You'd be happy with that.
Okay. I don't even know what to do. That's never happened before. This is a this is a banner moment, Jacob, and you get to witness it. So tell us. So we talked a little bit about finances. I get excited when I get to ask John about finances because I'm not good at it. I mean, not real. I don't think I'm very good at it. But what are some things that Thrive Point offers to help pregnancy centers that you think are different, or we know are different from maybe the average consulting group?
Yeah. Well, to start off, I think we offer traditional consulting packages. Like, and it's very common, right? Strategic planning, board development, right? Management, you know, mentoring, things like that. Those are very common things. But I think one of the things that sets us apart is that, in addition to those things, what we really like to do is do a diagnostic for pregnancy centers. So let's just say a center wants to go from a pregnancy resource center to a pregnancy medical center. That's great. It's great work, and we can help. We can definitely help with that. We know how to get you from one point to the next. But the thing that we want to do first is let's do a diagnostic. So let's look at the organization. Let's look at your county. Let's see what the needs are. Then let's go in your organization. Let's look at the board. Let's look at governance. How mature is that layer? So there's like layers that all work together. So governance is a big one. And then financial clarity is another one. Do we know how to read financial reports? Typically, I mean, my experience has been, as I talk to people around the country, is like when you have a board meeting, the board treasurer comes in, they have one, two, three reports. They pass them all out. Everybody's eyes glaze over, and the treasurer says, "Hey, we're in great shape." And everybody says, "Great, we're in good shape. What's next on the agenda?" I try to help boards and executive directors understand financial reports, how to read them, how to identify trends, how to realize if you only increased your reoccurring donors by 20%, that will fix your budget deficit. If you could increase it by 25%, you're no longer relying, you're no longer an event-driven organizations, which a lot of organizations are, and you guys both know this. Like if you miss a walk, if you miss a gala, you miss a baby bottle campaign, that throws your whole budget out of whack for the entire year. You cannot miss those events. Well, that I would call that an event-driven organization. So what we like to do is go in and help with financial clarity, understand how to get over that hurdle. So now when you have an event, it's not to make payroll, it's to invest into your programming, into your future. And then we look at culture. That's another thing. So we diagnose that. So we'll do surveys for the staff and the board to see if everybody's in alignment. A lot of times you'll see the board answers things one way and the staff answers it another way. Same set of questions, but they answer them differently. And that helps us to open up the book and really understand the story behind a center and help them come together and unify as the ultimate goal is to serve men and women better. So the pinnacle to that piece in the diagnostic is programming. So we like to see um, how satisfactory is our services that we offer. How do the clients view it? How does the staff view it? Are we meeting the needs that the gaps that have been shown to us by this intelligence brief that we did. So diagnostics, I think, is one thing that Thrive Point is a lot different than maybe some of the other consulting firms. Is like we're all quick to say, yeah, I can help you with whatever you want. But what we like to do is say, yeah, well, we will help you with that, but let's slow down and understand the why behind what we want to do to improve. And I think that's I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question or not. It felt
Yeah.
like it did.
Yeah, no, it does. I agree. No, I think what helps is when and I did this when I started here as a director. And again, it wasn't me, it wasn't my own wisdom. It was talking to people who had been in the business world and knew it. And my first thought was, man, we got to raise more money. How do I raise more money? And the answer to that isn't raise more money. The answer was let's go down and dig out the foundation and see what's going on. Like, how do we build our board up? How do we build our staff up? How do we make sure that we have the right people in the right seats? And I think it's really easy to focus on the presenting issue, which is usually money. I mean, right? Like most pregnancy centers would say, well, if we have more money, we'd be fine. Um, but I don't think that's really the answer. We have to look and say, what's our foundation? Um, where do we have gaps? Where do we have issues? Where do we have concerns? How do we repair those issues or concerns? And then we'll be in a healthy place so that we can grow, and we can manage more money in a way that honors God and honors our donors.
Yeah. And then what is your vision too? Like as a leader, what's your vision for your center as a board? What is the vision? Where do you want to go? So I can remember years ago, our board member insisted that we have this consultant come in and do strategic planning. It's like, well, can we talk about what our vision is first? I mean, maybe we should talk about that before we have a strategic plan. No, no, this person's really good. You want them to come in and do strategic planning. So they did this SWOT analysis, your strengths, your weakness, your opportunities, threats. And I was sitting there going through this and I'm just like shaking my head, Jacob, Sarah. It's like, why are we talking about, you don't even know where we want to go and you're talking about what our strengths, like shouldn't we be talking like what are our strengths that are going to help us achieve our goals? What are our weaknesses that are like our strength? We're really good at writing letters, but that had nothing to do with being accredited as an ambulatory healthcare facility. So it's like, you want to know what your vision is. You want to be able to cast that. And I think that's something that's very important because then everything else comes together as you're all working together towards that vision. Where there is no vision, the people perish. And I think if you can't state your vision and your mission clearly, easily, and effectively, it's very difficult to bring in any consultant for any other purpose.
Well, and one other thing I think ThrivePoint does really well is the relational piece, and that's staying in touch with pregnancy centers after. So one of the things that I hear from other centers, and it's actually not something I've dealt with because we have one consultant. He's used to run a pregnancy center in Michigan, and he's just worked with us for years. And so I didn't have this issue. I didn't realize how prevalent it was. But a lot of centers struggle with this sort of like shot in the arm consultant. Like, you come in and you do the board training and then they're gone. And I mean, you can call them, you can maybe ask a question or whatever. But when we were really struggling when I first started in 2014, it was really helpful to say, "Hey, this guy that you've met that we've worked with consistently for months and months and eventually years, this is what he thinks about this particular situation." So
Yeah.
it's not like we did 2 days of retreat and planning, and now we have to, like, remember all of that and kind of keep the momentum going for an indefinite period of time.
Well, Sarah, how many people do you talk to that have a consultant in, and then a month or two later, they're all sitting in a staff meeting, scratching their head like, "What were we supposed to do?"
Right. Well, either what were we supposed to do or and this can happen with staff and board, people are like, "Well, we don't wanna do that." So, like, they all agreed to it when the consultant was in the room, and then the consultant goes home, and they're like, "We're not doing that. That's not how we operate." And then you slide back into that dysfunction that you were trying to get out of in the first place.
Yeah. So one of the things that ThrivePoint does is we always will have a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, 180-day follow-up to make sure that we're staying on track from what we all agreed that we were going to do. And then I'm always available. Like, people can just pick up the phone and call me. I mean, everybody does it all day long anyway. I mean, if you're going to be doing it for a living, if you're going to be doing it as a consultant, you may as well answer the phone when somebody calls. And it's really not a big deal, but it's helpful to know that if you have a question, you can call. Like, you don't have to go through another engagement again. I mean, I'm here to help you achieve the goal. I mean, we'll do that by maybe having a 2-day session or in your center, or maybe doing monthly conference calls. But the goal is to reach the goal. I mean, that's what the target is, to reach the goal. So whatever we have to do to get there, I mean, we'll do an initial planning. We'll meet so many times, but if that's not enough, we're going to do whatever we have to do to reach the goal. That's what's most important to me. It's effectiveness.
So if a center wants to get in touch with you or talk to you about what ThrivePoint offers, how would they do that?
Well, there's a couple of ways. So you can visit our website. You can make an appointment right on our website. It's very easy to do. Our phone numbers are there. So it's thrivepointconsulting.org is our web address. We're certainly on Facebook and some other social media platforms as well. But you can always email me. It's John at thrivepointconsulting.org. You can email me directly. So you can do that, and then I'll certainly give you my phone number if you want it. But really easy to get a hold of and easy to talk to.
Well, thanks for joining us for the very first Sarah Bowen hosted Pro Life Team podcast. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. And and for those who are trying to email John, it's JON with no H, I
Yes.
suppose.
Yeah, no H.
Yeah, at. And yeah, and John, how many pregnancy clinics have you helped with consulting?
Oh,
Several? Sounds like.
dozens. Yeah,
Yeah,
dozens.
it's hard to count, I think, because there's John's kind of a softie, so he does a lot of stuff without tagging. So if you go back through his history and you look at how many centers he's helped, it's probably a much higher number
And over how many years
than if
might
we
that span?
Well, for officially for ThrivePoint, it's been less than a year.
Okay, but for you.
So I decided to set out to do that and step away from the pregnancy center operations because I really felt like well, a lot of reasons, but one is I think that is really a big need. It's a need that leaders in pregnancy centers need, that guidance. And Jacob, even with what you do, how many people struggle with how to find a marketing firm and what do they do about their website and
Almost
things like.
all of almost every pregnancy clinic struggles with that at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just I knew that was a big need and I was just ready. And I think a lot of times we hold on to our positions longer than we need to. I mean, our pregnancy center, the one that I ran anyway, was set to go. There's really not much more that I needed to do. We had an OBGYN on staff. We had accreditation. We were doing full services. We were moving into early maternal health care. I mean, the stage was set. We financially sound, money in the bank, um, decent revenue. Expenses were under control.
So, John, why might a pregnancy clinic director want or need to read the book Leading from the Second Chair?
Well, I think it's invaluable for two reasons. So when you hear leading from the second chair, it almost sounds like second chair leaders. It sounds like you're number 2 or you're number 3 in your organization. And it is, but what it does is it helps that first chair leader, the executive director, understand the mindset of those leaders that directly report to them, their dreams, their passions, what they're capable of doing. If you could just unlock them and help them to step up and see outside their own silo, their own department, and be able to look across the organization and give them that freedom to lead there, to speak into it, to take ownership of the entire organization. And leading from the second chair really helps number one leaders understand that dynamic and helps them to bring that out in their people, because it's very important that you can't just lead it by yourself. You need other people to support you. You need other people to be able to take on the task. You need other people to care about what's going on. If there's a department in your organization that's struggling a little bit, maybe they need some extra help, and you need other leaders to be able to say, you know what, I have time, I'm going to go help. So you just get more value out of your staff when everybody takes ownership and feels part of it. So I think it's a great book for unlocking that. Um,
Awesome.
so it help
Well,
help Sarah.
I think it did. I think it can be easy for pregnancy center or for any organization really, that especially one that's focused on people, to think, well, if we're not directly helping a client, then we're not doing the right thing. But there goes my internet again. I'm sorry, guys.
It'll be okay. It uploads at the end, so
Okay. So to think like, hey, if I'm not working directly with a client, I'm not really doing my job, or I'm not really providing the mission. But we have to also invest in our team and understanding like how they're working together and how they're interacting with one another and with you and with donors and with the community and with clients and all of these sorts of things. So yeah, it's a good. I will be honest though, I read the book because I'm like a nerd and I read the entire book before we started. And going through it as a study was much more helpful than just reading the book.
awesome. All right, so John, where have you seen God's fingerprints in this pro-life journey that you've been on?
Oh my goodness,
Or what's
Jacob,
the first story that comes to mind? Because obviously there's lots of
well,
fingerprints.
let me just say, like, I've been a believer since I was in my teens. I got
How
really
many years
serious.
is that since you were in your teens?
I got really serious about it when I was in my mid 20s. And
That would
did
have
you
been
hear
like 40 years
like
ago?
static or something? um, but anyway, I've seen more miracles. I've seen the invisible hand of God show up more in these last 7 years of my life than my entire life prior to that. So I know, for example, when I first took over, we had not a pregnancy, but a maternity home, but it was very dysfunctional in my opinion. The women were coming in and we were giving them a place to stay, but 18 months, 24 months later, when they left, they were the same person on the exit as they were in the entry. And I felt to myself, I mean, Lord, we're not really doing them a service. All we're doing is we're plucking them out of the environment that's put them in the situation, giving them a place to stay, and then putting them right back where they came from, only to repeat. And that's happened. We've had repeat customers in our maternity home. So very early on, I decided that we were going to change that program. We were going to do better. We were going to make it a program that was going to be transformative for the women who were staying with us. And I'll tell you, Jacob, we made that decision. We had that vision. We started having initial conversations about the intake process and the rules and all that kind of stuff. And wouldn't you know it, within the week or two from time we started having those meetings, a woman shows up at my door one day. She asks if she can talk to me. She comes in and she goes, John, she said, if I gave you $250,000, could you upgrade our maternity home program? It's like, yeah. Um, but then it gets even better. 3 or 4 weeks later, one of my staff members comes in and she says she's about to retire. She's going to move out to Illinois, live with her family. And I said, well, listen, if there's anything I can do for you, let you know. And she goes, let me know, because we work really good together. She said, well, I know you know a lot of people. Do you know any good realtors that you could recommend? I said, actually, I know quite a few realtors. What's on your mind? She goes, well, we need to sell our home. I said, well, can you tell me a little bit about it? And then I could tell you which realtor I would recommend. So she goes on to say it was a doctor's office with a residence attached. It's got 12 rooms, 4 bathrooms, and an office like attached to the building. I said, can I come and see it? So we go over there and I start walking through this thing, and I'm counting all the women and their babies that could stay here. And I think, my goodness, this was years ago. I said, our budget's 250 grand. If this house is probably worth 350, I'm going to have to raise money to be able to buy this. So get this, her husband and her talk about it. They come back to me in a couple of days and said, we got the house appraised. It's $300,000, but we're going to sell it to you for 225 and donate the rest. So now we have enough money to pay cash, and we have $25,000 to do a remodel. That's God. That is God. And I can't tell people enough that when God gives you a vision, start walking it out. I mean, you pray, yes, but you're not going to know if there's 10 steps to get from here to there, or 10 steps to get from this floor to the next floor. Just start. You don't need to see all 10. Just start walking it out, and you will see God honor that in a faithful way and open doors that you never would have imagined before. And I can just tell you that over and over and over again. Our staffing needs, God fills these needs. We have finally got the maternity home all ready to go. We were ready to open, but we didn't have a director to run it. So, man, I said, I don't know how to run a maternity home. So what are we going to do? I spoke at a church one day, and at the end of the service, a woman comes up to me and she goes, oh, I love what you do. Do you have any volunteer positions open? I said, well, yeah. What's your skill set? What do you do? And she goes, well, I have 2 master's degrees, one in social work and one in public administration. We got to talk. Well, she ended up being our director of our maternity home. It's just God, he opens, that's just a maternity home. Talk about other stuff later, but Sarah can tell you. It's full of miracles.
Well, and I think we all see that. I think every center sees that. Just God loves what we do, and He loves the children and the families that we help, and He makes it work when it seems like it shouldn't work. And it's incredible. Like I just think it's incredible to see, and all of us have those stories, little ones, big ones. And it's just God loves what we're doing, and He wants to be part of it, and we want Him to be part of it.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is.
Well, and God's not, you ever thought about, like, here we are, 2026, sometimes we think we're at the end or in the middle, but we're probably somewhat at the beginning of God working. I mean, it's hard to measure things, but,
It is.
probably just as much ahead of us as there is behind us.
Yeah, for
Amen.
sure.
I agree.
Well, so, well, John, would you close this in prayer, and with expectation is those who are listening will join in, and before we do, Sarah, what would you like to include as a part of our prayer? What would you suggest we pray about?
I think and this might be a little bit too like vague maybe, but just when John was talking about like the Dobbs decision, and it was a good thing, right? And it was amazing. It was just the best thing that could have happened. But it also brought a lot of problems. And so I think that something that we all need as pregnancy centers is just wisdom to know how that decision has impacted and is continuing to impact our communities and how to address it. We can't be stuck in the past. We can't be afraid to try something new and maybe fail. We can't wait for other organizations, whether it's other pregnancy centers or affiliates or whoever, to tell us to do something. We need to be faithful and willing to take those first steps, and willing to take risks, and willing to potentially have things just not work out and have to try again.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck getting that into a prayer.
I got it.
Okay.
Should we pray? Yeah. All right, Lord, I just want to thank you for this time together. It was a real treat for me, and I just pray that it's a blessing on those who are listening. Lord, just like Sarah talked about, I pray that for all the leaders in the pregnancy center world and the pregnancy help world would just have a clear vision from you. Help them to recognize when you open doors, and help them to recognize when you're closing the door. Father, we just always want to be attentive to your move and to your speaking to us through your Spirit. I pray for the Pro-Life Team podcast, that this platform would continue to grow, and that more and more people would get to hear life-affirming things, but things that are very practical for them in what they do on a day-to-day basis. Just lift up all those leaders out there who just need you. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Early on in the morning, I wake up to the warning that there are angels standing by my side. Black clouds open up, I see your face in the twilight. Peaceful glow in your cosmic eyes. Sometimes my desire drags me into the fire, climbing higher in my sin. Up at the top of my ladder, I just keep growing sadder, till you show me where I am. Shooting stars find my heart. When I wander from you, your face shows me the way home. Swim in a circle of souls. You're in the body we know. You're revealing your cosmic eyes. The twisted waves kill emotion, like a train in the ocean, straining against the pulling tide. Shooting stars find my heart. When I wander from you, your face shows me closing in on the distance, on my track of resistance. I'm caught in your galactic gaze. Sin is like a concussion, satisfies you with nothing. Then the Spirit reveals your aim. Sitting on the moon, your shooting stars find my heart. When I wander from you, your face shows me